Salutations, kindred souls. Welcome back to another episode of Lux Martin Enlightenment. I'm Lux, and on this channel, I talk about how healing, wisdom, and integration become the foundational tools you need to help live your most enlightened life. Not the kind that floats above life, but the kind you find right in the middle of it. Today, we're going to talk about forgiveness and acceptance regarding cycles and endings. Honoring how our human feels lingering residual feelings when seasons, places, relationships, parts of our life come to a close, and we're still processing feelings about them. How we're going to do that, why we do that, and what we're going to use to empower ourselves moving forward. Honoring and processing lingering emotions from those past experiences, cycles, or relationships help you move forward with self-compassion and integration, because the emotions aren't there to be that nagging, lingering reminder that you didn't do this right, or you should have done it differently, or you didn't heal all of it, or you didn't finish this. They're not meant to be that. They are meant to be tools that you use to springboard yourself forward. So we're going to start by talking about what forgiveness is. I wanted to look up the definition of this because what I want to enhance today, or what I really want to emphasize, is the fact that forgiveness for both yourself and others around the closure of a cycle or a season, whether that's a place, a relationship, a job, the things, forgiveness is the tool that you use to move towards the new baseline existence lifestyle of acceptance. So I'll get into that later, but we're going to use both forgiveness and acceptance of processing and moving through the lingering human feels in moving forward out of an old cycle into a new one. Forgiveness is, this definition that I found, it says, the conscious decision to release resentment or anger towards someone, whether that's you or someone else, who has wronged you without excusing your actions, nor possibly receiving or needing closure or reconciliation. So to me, that's a pretty good all-encompassing understanding of what forgiveness is, knowing that it is a choice. It's a conscious choice to release. You're not denying what happened. You're not excusing what happened. You're also not denying the emotions that come with all of it. However, you are choosing to move forward knowing that there may or may not be reconciliation, closure, for mutual forgiveness, mutual apologetics and forgiveness, yeah? But again, to me, forgiveness is a tool we use for both ourselves and others to move through something, to move on, It's very true that people say forgiveness is more so for yourself than others, especially knowing that we often are needing to choose forgiveness without reconciliation or closure, without getting that apology. Forgiveness is a choice you make regardless of whether an apology was stated or not. And again, that also can be turned towards yourself. And so to me, it becomes a tool of when you need to forgive yourself, and not because you need to apologize to yourself, but because you're acknowledging these feelings, these things that are coming up for you upon the examination of this topic. And in particular, today's topic, the closure, the ending of a cycle or a season. We're going to start with taking a hot second to talk about the nature of emotional residue. It is okay to understand that closing a cycle or a season of life, or a relationship, or a job, or a place you live, or a dream you had, or a connection to something you had, closing it out is going to have residual feelings. They are natural. It's part of a human carcass thing. It's part of a nervous system thing. Humans attach the strength and the nature of a memory with an emotion, and a memory is enhanced both positively or negatively by the emotion we associate it with, both in the cycle, regarding the cycle itself and its endings. So to me, I'll take a 2-second breakdown of the fact that you can feel many feelings about the entirety, the from start to end of a particular cycle, its lessons, the things that happens, the acceptance of it, and what happened to you in it, as well as there can be a separate set of emotions regarding just the ending. A particular real life example for me is a career path I had for almost 20 years. If you'd have asked me 7, 8 years ago, I'd have told you for sure I was going to do this for the rest of my life. It's what I was meant to do, it's where I was meant to be. And upon the couple years of moving into the acceptance of the fact that that wasn't going to be the case, both in that career and in that location, I prolonged the ending of the cycle due to my immense anxiety and unwillingness to accept its ending, as well as the fear of the unknown, as well as the inconsistencies, the lack of confidence in myself to transition from this thing into something else. So I will say that although I had many, many years of beautiful memories of building who I was, great connections with people, people I loved and cared about and served, those don't change. The great feelings that I have about the time I spent in that cycle in that season are totally different and positive compared to the set of emotions that it took me to process the ending, and up until recently was still processing, looking back and understanding all of the things I needed to feel just to go through that ending and accept its ending, as well as my not so graceful transitioning into other things, other careers, other cycles. All of that was a little bit messy due to the lack of space and grace I was giving myself to process that ending. And so I will say right here that whether it's, a short-lived job that didn't pan out the way you thought it was going to, or a place that you stayed, a house you lived in, a city you lived in that you're moving locations, or a relationship that needs to end because you've built some boundaries that you need to honor and respect in connection with this person that's not able to be done. We all are being called to understand and accept that your human carcass is going to feel things both in the middle of that and upon its ending and its acceptance of its ending. And that's just the way we're wired, the way we're built. And that those sets of emotions can be different from cycle conceptually to cycle ending portion. Now we're going to move into utilizing the tool of forgiveness as integration. Some people say that forgiveness is often harder for ourselves than others. I believe that absolutely depends on the situation. I think it's absolutely fair to say that there needs to be more work on your part in forgiving someone else for what happened than yourself. Maybe you handled the situation really gracefully in comparison to a person or a thing you were in connection with, and that brings up a lot of negative emotions in you. Or maybe you're more upset with yourself about the way you handled the ending, about the way you handled the cycle, about how difficult the cycle of the situation was for you, or about, even for me, sometimes I had a lot of resentment and anger and frustration with myself about the fact that this is what it was about. This is what I was meant to learn. I had more anger about what the lesson was than who I was learning the lesson with, or where it was, or the fact that it was ending, or you know what I mean? So there were all these pockets of things that needed to be sorted through in multiple types of cycle endings for me, including what the lesson was. And so that's where we reach for forgiveness for self and others. That's where we use this tool of retroactively going back if we need to and deciding that the feelings I had were not only okay, they were natural, but I forgive myself for having them as well as whatever happened. But today we're focusing on feelings. Yeah. I forgive myself for the feelings I had for what happened in this cycle, or what happened in the closure and the ending of this cycle, this season of life. And I accept that they are meant for me to use, not to wallow in. And so this is where we point out that recognizing that your negative emotions, such as fear, frustration, shame, guilt, resentment, or even apathy, are just a little bit of follow-up lesson. They're like that, the residual feelings that you have when you examine a situation retroactively or examine this closure is about developing discernment. It's a tool to use in honing in your awareness and discernment for not only how you're moving through a cycle, how you're moving through the ending of a cycle, but what you're using to move through it, whether that's apathy, whether you're just choosing to disengage entirely in order to help move on with your life, whether you're using shame as a tool to say, wow, what do I need to feel shame about this for? What can I move into greater self acceptance and self honor about in moving forward into a new cycle that may repeat itself regarding this particular topic? Or maybe I can give myself more honor, respect, and sovereignty in a future cycle because I've examined and dealt with this shame I feel for how something ended, for how I behaved in a situation, for how I feel about a situation. And so using forgiveness to accept your emotions, validate them. In no way am I saying that you should deny or suppress emotions. It's very cliche as it is. When people say you have to feel it to heal it, I know of no other way that works. Maybe you do, but I do not. Letting yourself feel the feels is the way you move forward. And part of letting yourself feel the feels is acknowledging and accepting that they're there. And if you need to forgive yourself for that they're there, that's okay too. That's the point of what we're examining this here. However, my big emphasis going back to using the forgiveness as a tool is if you need forgiveness for those negative emotions for yourself and others and for the way you're feeling about a situation, use it. Use forgiveness as the tool to get yourself to a new baseline existence where you almost don't need forgiveness. I won't say never because there are still going to be things in life where we have to reach for the tool of forgiveness. But my point is forgiveness doesn't have to be your go-to. Acceptance is your baseline form of existence. When you accept, this is the way I feel. When you accept, this is the ending of a cycle. When you accept, I have anxiety around transitioning into a new cycle. Acceptance becomes a new form of existence, and forgiveness becomes a tool we use when a situation is particularly difficult to move through, not using forgiveness as the way we trudge through every form of processing something that happened and the way we feel about it. Yeah. So moving forward into you understanding the quick caveat point here of understanding that using forgiveness both as a spiritual layer and a practical layer. Spiritually, I believe that God, your higher self, the divine, whatever you'd like to call it, is letting you use emotions and the endings of cycles and the residual emotions you feel around the ending of a cycle to help realign, to help recalibrate. In the final examination and acknowledgement of those lingering feelings, you allow it to dissipate and then you allow clarity to realign and recalibrate for the new you. You're using that last little bit of residual to examine, dissipate, create clarity and space to then move forward into new you, new existence, new thought, new decision making. And to me, that's both very spiritual, very deep, as well as very practical. When you're done feeling the feels and you're ready to move on and do your life, that has all everyday sense practicality. And that is forgiveness is both a tool we use spiritually and in an everyday sense of our human life must continue. Here's how I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Now we shall transition to some practical exercises in using forgiveness and acceptance as an integration tool for the endings of seasons and cycles. I will say, as much as I don't love journaling at this red hot moment in time, I have and I do use journaling for this particular concept because it proves to be the most potent form of practical application for integration for moving through this. Whether you want to rage write, an automatic write, and just let whatever comes out come out because you're in the heat of a moment or you're in the big feels of a cycle ending or its residual feels and you'd like to dive deeper into sorting out why they're there and what you're going to do with them. Or sometimes I just need to bullet point list, like, here's the situation, here's what I'm so bent out of shape about, this is what I feel, this is what I feel, this is what I see happening, this is what I'd like to happen. And I just bam, 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 list it all out, or I take, 7 pages of a journal and auto write, whatever. Do you. Journal how you journal. I will make a nice little note here in saying that one of my mentors, Laura Mazzata, gave me a great journaling prompt that I have used to dive way deep and uncover a lot of great stuff that I was holding on to in this journal prompt. She calls the deepest fear journal prompt. And I don't believe I have it verbatim, but it goes something along the lines of, I absolutely refuse to accept XYZ situation thing because that would mean dot dot dot. And I just remember one time I had started this prompt in a group course together with a group of women, doing this all together on a live. And it started out with a kind of surface level issue that I think had to do with a relationship. And then as I began to understand, because that would mean, or because that would mean, because that would mean, I started to uncover all of these way, way deeper things going on in me that I didn't even realize needed processing. But in taking the time to rant and rave through that huge journal rabbit hole, I was able to super duper move through a lot of emotions and things that were going on, and let go of things that it wasn't about. So I will say that writing things down, oh, that was what I was going to say. In your journaling, or in your, whether you want to verbally process or written process, sometimes in that list you can make yourself of all the things you're feeling and why you think you're feeling them. What's really helpful is being able to decide what you're ready to move through and what you're not. Maybe you're really upset about the ending of a relationship, and you list out all of the things that you're feeling and you're upset about, and that you're acknowledging about the ending of this cycle, this relationship. Maybe on a list of 10 things you wrote down, you're only ready and willing to forgive and deal and accept with 5 of them. Totally okay, because now, rather than trying to eat the whole elephant, you're taking a bite at a time and going, okay, well, I'm ready to accept and acknowledge that this is what's happening and this is how I'm feeling, and I'd like to do something about this, that, and the other. But these things over here, forget that. I am not ready. I'm still so pissed that I cannot deal with this right now. To me, that's a fantastic revelation of you doing the thing of moving forward with those processing, with the processing of the emotions and the things and the cycle, because you're doing it a bite at a time, and you're doing it in the parts that you're ready to do. Maybe 6 months down the road, you'll be able to do something with those things. Maybe 3 days down the road. Right now, you're ready and willing to accept and forgive these aspects of the feelings, the cycle, the endings. I'll get to those when I'm ready to get to those. And in your doing these things and allowing those things to dissipate, clarify, align, recalibrate, you'll empower yourself to get to those other things on the list, or the feelings that you'll deal with later. So to me, that's a really potent form of practical application. As much as you may or may not like journaling, doing the parts work. And lastly, that's something I will add as a final practical tool for the integration of these things, is exploring the topic of parts work guided meditations. I will say that I have done several of them from different mentors and sources and YouTube channels. Parts work meditations is essentially taking a couple conflicting pieces or aspects of yourself or a topic or a situation, and letting someone walk you through a guided meditation of merging those two things back together in a healing and helpful way. I will say that I've tried a couple different ones and I like them. I don't necessarily feel the need to do them all the time, but I have found them helpful in moving through and processing things that I would like to process and move on with, feeling like I've done the integration work, both mentally and spiritually processing the thing and the feelings coming up with it. So journaling, listing, forgiveness choices, and parts work meditations would be the practical applications. And lastly, I would like to close out with how I feel like this concept in particular is important for twin flames, because although my channel can be for most anyone, because I love talking about using the tools life gave me for healing, integration, and on my journey to enlightenment of living my best life possible and sharing that with all of you, I will note that the point of this for me is I'm moving through a twin flame journey, and I want other twin flames out there to recognize this, utilize this. Hopefully I help somebody get through something that, I was feeling a couple years ago, and help you get to that place, because it's hard. It's a difficult one. And so I want to make that clear that this channel is always out there as a resource for twin flames out there. Anyways, the point of this topic is also so relevant to twin flames because the cycles you go through in twin flame connections that you're using to mirror the inner work to each other needed for clarity, alignment, remembrance is the point. It's the point, it's the nature of the connection, and that is a really, really difficult truth to accept. Me 3 or 4 years ago would have absolutely not accepted that. You would have not been able to console me whatsoever upon the bitter truth that the nature of the twin flame connection is to use cycles, use endings, use the feelings you feel, use the tumultuous nature of it to refine yourself. It is a gift. It is happening for you, not to you. All of that stuff would have just ground my gears to a screeching halt a while ago. And now I'm finally to a place where I see the gift in it. I see it as the challenge for me personally to let every fire refine me as much as possible. It is no longer about, why do I have to go through this? Why did we do this so many times? Why did it take so many cycles? Why was this cycle so painful? Why am I not getting it? Why am I not altering to a great degree the nature of this lesson due to the repetition of the cycles? All these why questions were really, really hard for me to get through and accept, but I will encourage someone out there in saying that in your trudging through it, in your acceptance and forgiveness of them and yourself for the cycles, for the ending of the cycles, for the repetitions of the cycles, that's the point. It's the gift, it's the journey, and at some point you come to a place where you accept its beauty in that, and you're able to forgive yourself. That was a really big thing for me that I had to move through in forgiving myself for the emotional responses I had in cycles and in those endings. There are things that I said and did in relationship with my connection with my person that he may never forgive me for. Regardless of that may be true, I have to forgive myself for the way my human thrashed around in those and the way my human struggled for so long with feelings about cycles and their endings. That was a lot of work I had to do on myself, but now that I have done that work, I have let it refine me to a place where forgiveness is a back pocket tool, not my go-to, and acceptance is my go-to baseline frame of existence. And to me, that's a beautiful gift that I let the fire of cycles and endings of cycles refine in me and bring out in me. And so I hope I can encourage someone out there in understanding that if you're in the thick of it right now, and if you're in the deep, deep pit of feeling a lot of heavy emotions about a cycle or its ending, regardless of whether you're a twin flame or not, I really want to encourage someone out there in believing that in your feeling, in your processing, in your moving through it, and in your forgiveness and acceptance of both yourself and what happened in the cycle and in the closure of it, you are giving yourself empowered tools to move forward, make new choices, succeed, and choose new cycles of life that will benefit you and prompt you onto new things. That's a really beautiful thing. And I can and do believe that you will get there just like I am getting there. So in closing, let's take a second to reflect on the fact that every cycle, every ending, and every emotional wave that comes with it is a teacher. It's a beautiful gift that's for you. It's not a nagging stab at you didn't learn the lessons, you didn't finish this is coming up again. Residual human emotions are the last little bit of tools and acceptance that we use to move forward and integrate the lesson. The residual emotions are tools to finish integrating. Yeah? Not that you didn't do the work and you didn't finish it and you didn't heal the heals. You're feeling the feels to finish healing it. So I really hope that encourages you out there to honor the weight of yesterday or the weight of the ending, and then moving through it and releasing and accepting your humanness that comes with it is the foundation for your conscious, empowered choices moving forward. Thank you so much for listening today. Keep seeking, keep softening, keep showing up. Remember, the light you're looking for is the light you already are. Take care.